All right. Hi, class. Glad you're here, etc. Um, yeah. So, two things, and then we'll get into actual class. I'm going to send out an email to the entire class. I realize biology people, you've already gotten it, but just in case somebody isn't a bio major or minor or interested, but thinks, you know what, between now and tomorrow that you want to become one, great. You'll have the email there. Tomorrow there's the 4-year planning session. You got like 3 options to sign up for. It's via Zoom. It's probably helpful. You should go if you can, which you probably can. It used to be that like people were always playing games or whatever when we had this. This year, you probably can go. Okay, but today we're going to go into photosynthesis. So, let me get this going here. Before we actually talk about photosynthesis proper, we need to talk about fall and trees. So, probably not now for most of you, but have you ever been the person responsible for raking up and carting off tons of trees, right? Like, your family has a tree in their yard, and this tree, like, just dumps leaves. And you're forever raking it up and stuffing it into garbage bags or lighting on fire. However it is you're getting rid of these, right? Like a lot, right? Also, this is all leading to trees are big, just in case you know. Has anybody ever had a branch fall off a tree? Like, onto their house, onto the fence, something, right? And then you're, like, chopping this thing up and hauling it off. This thing's big, right? Like, it didn't look that big in the tree, but, like, it's big. Everyone's with me here? Trees are big? Okay. It's not uncommon for a tree to weigh, like, 20 tons. Like, that's not even, like, a freakishly large tree. Trees can be really big, okay? Everyone's with me? Good. Yay. Thank you. Okay. Trees are very big. Have you seen the seeds trees start from? They're little bitty, right? Like you can imagine like an acorn, like little bitty, right? It does not weigh 20 tons. So sometime between acorn or seed of whatever type, right? Apple seed, whatever, right? Sometime between seed and huge tree that you're forever hauling all this stuff away from, something happens, right? Like many things happen, but something happens. So a question I'm interested in is this. So we're not worried about the wet part of trees. Like if the tree was dry, so not counting the water proper. Where do trees get most of their dry mass from? Like where are they getting it? Like you start with a little apple seed and acorn. How is it getting bigger? Is it pulling something from water? Is it pulling something from soil? Is it pulling something from sunlight, from air? How is this getting bigger? Then we're going to talk about it. Did I get most people? I think I got most people. Can't I get you? You always okay. So I don't always leave you out. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay. You feel clever. I'm gonna show these answers here, and just none of this is to make people feel bad because like this blew my little mind when I first learned this. It gets interesting. We're gonna talk about all these answers. So hear what the class thinks. Okay, and there's good reasons for all of them. So trees. Now I'm talking about plants. Well, we'll stick with trees. Online people. We're gonna go through water, soil, sunlight, air. It's on your slides. Okay, so trees getting most of the dry mass from water. They need water, right? Trees need water. But that's not where they're getting most of the stuff that's building the tree, right? There might be some like dissolved ions in the water. That's fine. They'll use some of that. But that's not most of it, okay? Cool. Soil seems like a really, really good bet, right? Seems like a solid bet, right? Because I have read those enthusiastic children's books about like trees get nutrients from soil. Yeah? I think that's where a lot of people are coming from this. Makes sense? And like trees do get nutrients from soil, right? They pull phosphorus, they pull some calcium. This is why, like, if you're committed to this houseplant growing, you're like dumping Miracle-Gro on the stuff, right? Okay. They get some little bits of stuff from soil. But thought experiment with me for a second. You plant, I'm stuck with acorns. I don't know why I'm stuck on acorns, but we're stuck with acorns. You plant an acorn in a park, and most people when they plant trees, like the ground flat, they dig a hole, plant the tree, put it flat. We're okay with that visual? When you go to a park or your backyard has a really big one, or if you look around campus, old trees that have been there a long time. The tree is going up, is there like a mound around it? Not counting mulch. Or is there like a pit around it? Does that make sense? Are we okay with this idea? Which one is it? And most of them are like this. Okay, that they're kind of lumped up, right? You've seen this? Like the tree's really old, and like there's roots, like there's also dirt around, and it's like gotten bigger, right? It's not because whoever's planting the tree is like making a big mound, then making a hill, then planting the tree on the top of the hill, right? Just over time, it ends up with a hill, right? Which you'd think if it was sucking stuff from soil, if it was like eating dirt, you'd expect it to pit down, right? Same thing with like your houseplant. Not counting what you accidentally like knock over or the cat knocks over. You don't have to keep, even if you keep cutting off leaves off its houseplant, you don't have to keep putting dirt in, right? It's not like eating the dirt. Also, when you see like cracks on a sidewalk, right? If a root's gone there, does the sidewalk, there's a tree nearby, there's a root here, sorry, I do everything with hands. There's a sidewalk here, the root goes under it. Does the sidewalk crack up or does the sidewalk cave in? Crack up, right? It's like what used to be their soil somehow got bigger, there's more mass than there used to be, as opposed to soil getting sucked out and put someplace else in the tree and it caving, right? So somehow the tree is getting bigger than the dirt, right? It's not sucking all the stuff from dirt. It's not eating the dirt. Yes, it is getting certain nutrients from soil, but not most of its stuff. Okay, so that leaves sunlight and air. There's two options here. So sunlight's a really good guess too, right? Because like some of us might have accidentally left houseplants not by sunlight for a while, and then it's kind of rough in our little plant buddy, right? But people who feel comfortable with physics, if you go super into physics, yes, light has mass. But in general, does light weigh much? No, right? So if like you're out there in the sun and like light hits you, do you get heavier? You don't, right? And our little acorn buddy, just by like being zapped by light, it can give it energy, it can give it heat, it can give it a whole bunch of different kinds of energy, but is actually making it physically weigh more? I know, which then only leaves us with this one. Right? Is that weird? Are we feeling weird yet? You should feel weird. I mean, maybe not. Don't feel weird. You're getting it from air. And I bet you actually knew this. It's just a really weird thing to think about. Most of the mass of trees or plants is coming from air, right? So, remind me, like, people breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, right? All right, I probably shouldn't do that with a mask on. Sorry. I'll stop breathing on you guys so enthusiastically. Trees take in carbon dioxide, right? And give off oxygen. Are we okay with that picture? Where's the carbon going? So you had carbon and oxygen coming in. You have oxygen leaving. What happens to the carbon? Yeah. Do you see what's going on there? The tree gets to keep it. It gets to use it to build stuff. Right? Are we okay with this? I know, right? It's weird to me, but it's cool. So that's where we are today. We're going to look at how trees and other plants get this done. Questions, comments? Great. Also, you should ask your roommates because everybody gets this wrong. And like, it's just because, I do blame enthusiastic children's books, which is great. Like, plants do get things from soil, but not most of their mass. All right. Okay, we are here then. So photosynthesis, I think people are at least sort of familiar with the idea, right? You're going to get solar energy, and you're going to change it into chemical energy. Yeah? And either directly or indirectly, the living world really needs this to happen. So organisms come in two main types. I mean, they come in lots of types. But for today, we're talking about two types of organisms. One type are called autotrophs. Auto meaning self, like an autobiography is a self-biography, right? Okay. Autotrophs are going to be able to sustain themselves by themselves without having to eat things from other organisms, right? They need energy, and they need stuff, right? So they need calcium, or they need phosphorus, or they need carbon, but they don't have to go around and nom other organisms, right? You okay with that? Autotrophs are going to be making organic molecules, right? They'll find little pieces of things, carbon dioxide, phosphorus, whatever. They'll find those things and build it together, right? Most plants, most things are photoautotropic, meaning that all organisms need energy. And so the way most autotrophs are getting this is they're getting the energy from light, right? So think just about the classic plant example, right? You're going to use light, you're going to use these other chemicals in their environment, you can build stuff up. There is one other option for getting energy and being an autotroph. It's using chemosynthesis. So most things are using photosynthesis, using light. Some little bacteria buddies can hang out in like volcanoes, or right next to, it's really hard to see the picture, deep sea vents. And then they use like the power of lava. They use the heat from the Earth's core to power them. But we're going to pretend not to care about that right now. Right? Are we okay with this? Most autotrophs are going to use energy from sunlight to power themselves. Questions? I keep saying plants because it's easy for me to think about plants. Just for the record, photosynthesis happens in plants, it happens in algae, it happens in some unicellular eukaryotic organisms, it happens in some prokaryotes, right? Like, so some little bacteria can do this. But yeah, I'm going to keep using plants. But these different organisms, lots of other things eat them, or eat things from them. So there's the autotroph idea, you don't need to nom other organisms. And then there's the heterotroph idea, which is basically animals. So you're going to get your organic material, your carbon, your complicated molecules, you're getting it from other organisms, whether that's by eating pineapple, whether that's by eating fish, right? Whatever it is you're doing, you're getting that material from other organisms. So far, so good? Cool with this? That cat is adorable. Let's skip that, that was not. We're going to watch this video. Online people, it's if you click in your slides, it'll work. We're going to watch this video. Don't worry about memorizing it yet, but you're just going to look at it, okay? It is going to, for all the world, it's going to look like cellular respiration run backwards. So remind me what happens in cellular respiration? We start with what? Yeah, so we're going to have glucose, we're going to break it up, right? So start with this organic molecule, glucose, whatever, we don't care. But we're going to break it apart, right? We're going to keep breaking it apart into carbon dioxide at the end, right? What if we get off of it? Yeah, we put one, but we capture energy too, right? Yeah, sorry, I realized, like, read my mind, that's not fair. But you're right, yeah, we're going to get stuff off, right? We're going to get water, we're going to get energy off, we're going to end up with, at the end of it, we're going to end up with, so we start with a complex molecule and do stuff to it, and we're going to end up with energy sources we can actually use. It used to be in the molecule, but now it's in sources we can use, so ATP or whatever, and a bunch of little chunks, so carbon dioxide and stuff, right? Okay, if you play that in reverse, you'd start with little carbon dioxide chunks, some energy sources, and some water, and you cram them together and end up with sugar or an organic molecule, right? That's what we're doing here. It's going to look really similar, and I'm going to pause it partway through because I get excited about the electron transport chain. Because there's another one. Online people, watch your video.
Plants provide us with food to eat and oxygen to breathe. They perform this amazing feat by the process of photosynthesis. Let's take a closer look. Photosynthesis requires carbon dioxide, which diffuses into the leaf through small pores, and then enters the cells. Inside the cell, carbon dioxide diffuses into the chloroplasts, where photosynthesis takes place. Chloroplasts use energy from light to transform carbon dioxide and water into sugar and oxygen. Zooming into a chloroplast, we see these flattened membranous sacs called thylakoids. Here, light energy is converted to chemical energy in the first phase of photosynthesis, the light reactions. The two green structures you see here are photosystems, large complexes of proteins and chlorophyll that capture light energy. An electron transport chain connects the two photosystems. Notice the small mobile electron carriers that shuttle electrons from one large complex to another. Now let's take a closer look at the steps of the light reactions. The photosystem on the left absorbs light energy, exciting electrons that enter the electron transport chain. Electrons are replaced with electrons stripped from water, creating oxygen as a byproduct. The energized electrons flow down the electron transport chain, releasing energy that is used to pump hydrogen ions, the blue balls, into the thylakoid. In the photosystem on the right, light energy excites electrons, and this time the electrons are captured by an electron carrier molecule, NADPH. The high concentration of hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid powers ATP synthase, producing ATPs. Light energy excites electron ions. The transport chain.
Oh, good grief.
Actions.
Okay, we're going to look at this for just a sec. So what's happening here? You've seen the electron transport chain before. Let me get it so I can draw on this. Nope, sorry. Sorry, people, give me a sec to find it on these guys' slides. What's the time here? 1:20? Okay. Ah. No. Good grief. There we go. Okay. So you've seen electron transport chain before, and it just broke. There we go. You've seen electron transport chain before, and last time you saw it, sorry, I'm going to do both here. You had high energy electrons coming in, giving off energy as it flowed down to low energy electrons, right? And as it gave off energy, it pumped hydrogens across, right? So you can imagine it right here. We have this little electron acceptor, the little red square, with some high energy electrons in it, right? It drops in there. It's a different electron transport chain. This is different, right? But it gives energy off here, hands it across, and uses it to pump hydrogens across. At the very end of the day, you have low energy electrons that you hand over to water, and you're done, right? This time, we're running this backwards. We're going to have low energy electrons that hang out in water. We're going to zap this stuff with some energy from light. We're going to get those electrons high energy. We're going to suck them off water. Right? We're stripping electrons from water. We get high energy electrons. Boom. Low energy electrons basically kick them with light, bounce them up in energy. Okay? They're going to be high energy electrons, and they get passed along, pump hydrogens across. High energy electrons can do that, right? If they get handed across. We get some more electrons, really high energy. and we pick them up with the electron acceptor. So we end up basically the reverse thing that happened before. So far, so good? And you know light can energize things, right? So my daughter, for her birthday, we gave her glow-in-the-dark socks because glow-in-the-dark socks are awesome, and now I want some, right? So they're really cool. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. Anyway, so now before bed, she holds up her socks next to the lamp, right? And originally, the glow-in-the-dark paint that's on there isn't giving off energy. It's not very energetic, right? It's just kind of chilling. But light energy comes into that and can energize that glow-in-the-dark stuff, right? Originally, you have an electron that's not very energetic. Light energy can come in and can bounce it up in energy. Everyone's there? Sorry, now I'll actually let you watch the video. So here we go.
The system on the left absorbs light energy, exciting electrons that enter the electron transport chain. Electrons are replaced with electrons stripped from water, creating oxygen as a byproduct. The energized electrons flow down the electron transport chain, releasing energy that is used to pump hydrogen ions, the blue balls, into the thylakoid. In the photosystem on the right, light energy excites electrons, and this time the electrons are captured by an electron carrier molecule, NADPH. The high concentration of hydrogen ions inside the thylakoid powers ATP synthase, producing ATPs. The light reactions in the thylakoid have produced two energy products, ATP and NADPH, that will now power the production of sugar in the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle takes place outside the thylakoids in the stroma, the thick fluid of the chloroplast. At the beginning of the cycle, carbon dioxide molecules combine with molecules called RUBP. The resulting molecules go through a series of reactions powered by ATP and NADPH from the light reactions. Sugar molecules known as G3Ps are produced. Most of the G3Ps are rearranged back into RUBPs that will begin the Calvin cycle again. But the important product of photosynthesis is the remaining G3P sugar. Some G3Ps are used to build glucose, which can combine into starch or cellulose. Still other G3Ps form sucrose. And some of the sugar is broken down by cellular respiration using oxygen in the plant's own mitochondria, generating ATPs that can power other work of the plant. Excess oxygen diffuses out of the leaf through the pores, while more carbon dioxide enters. With three simple ingredients, carbon dioxide, water, and light, plants produce sugar and oxygen by photosynthesis, powering plant metabolism and ultimately providing your fuel as well.
We're good? Yeah. Okay. So that's where we are. And just to make sure we're all on the same page here. Plants are made up of a lot of things, but mostly they're carbohydrates, right? So like proteins are important, they're going to be there, but a lot of carbohydrates, whether that's starch, whether that's cellulose, right, sugar. Thing two, plants need a source of carbon dioxide. They need light. They also need the source of carbon dioxide. So like how you would be if you were just in a carbon dioxide environment without oxygen, right? You die. You suffocate. If you don't give plants carbon dioxide, you can whack them as well. So don't do that. Okay, but photosynthesis is going to be where you actually have this happen. You're going to be converting the light energy into chemical energy. And that's going to happen in this little buddy. Well, in plants, so bacteria are slightly different. They just get to do something different. But in general, it can happen here in the chloroplast. So it's this little bag that for all the world looks like a little photosynthetic bacteria that got trapped inside a cell. It can't live on its own, but it's got this membrane. It's got all these little discs inside. They're called thylakoids. Words here. So we've got a leaf, right? Leaves are where most photosynthesis happens. It can happen some other places too, but in general, you're expecting it in the leaves. The interior tissue of the leaf is called the mesophyll. Don't worry about memorizing that. But inside that tissue, you have a bunch of cells. And inside the cells, you have a bunch of chloroplasts. And inside the chloroplasts, you have a bunch of these little things called thylakoids. Okay, so thylakoids are inside these chloroplasts. Chloroplasts are inside the cells are inside the whole organism. Yeah? And lots of different parts. The important parts for us are going to be these little thylakoid stacks, right? And then the goo outside them, but that's still inside the chloroplast. You've got the chloroplast, thylakoid discs, thylakoid stacks there. There's goo outside it, so like the goo in the cells, the cytosol. The goo inside this is called stroma. It is. It's pretty sticky, but it's there. So far, so good. And you all saw these. You saw chloroplasts when you looked at your little allodia leaves under the microscopes, right? You saw that like rectangular cell, right? And then all the little green spots, right? You saw all a bunch of little chloroplasts inside the cell. Great. Is this going too fast? Maybe? Not maybe? Okay, so the plan is to go over photosynthesis today and Wednesday, but per request, to not cover every single thing about photosynthesis, because there's like all sorts of things about photosynthesis, but to kind of keep it focused. And then on Friday, we'll kind of have a review over everything since the last exam. Basically the cellular respiration part and photosynthesis and metabolism, right? Good with this? All right, okay, so this is the overall reaction. And as you pointed out earlier, well, we'll get to it. You've got carbon dioxide, water, energy from light. You end up with sugar, oxygen, and water, right? So in cellular respiration, you have sugar and oxygen and water floating around, but you make water. And you go from having cellular respiration, you go from having a complex organic molecule like sugar, in the presence of oxygen, breaking it down to carbon dioxide and getting off energy, right? Here we're doing backwards thing. We're going carbon dioxide, water, light energy to sugar, oxygen, and water. Let's just check really quickly. How many carbons on this side? Just the 6? Right? 6. Yeah. Do we have 6 on this side? Yeah, we're okay there. Our oxygens, we've got a lot of oxygens going on, right? We've got 12 plus 12, we've got 24. We've got 6 plus 6, that's 12, plus another 12, that's 24. Are we okay in hydrogens as well? 24, 12, and 12, right? So all of our molecules are accounted for. In this slide, we gave in energy. On this side, where's the energy? Yeah, in the sugar, right? So now we've got energy in here. Fair enough? Do we see how this is going? The process is different, but it's basically the reverse of what we just learned, right? Okay. So lots of things, and this now is going to move into being chemistry and physics for the next 15 minutes, but you're cool with that. Chloroplasts get to do this. So have carbon dioxide and water come in. They get to tear those apart, build them back together, and you end up with sugar, water, well, less water than you had before, and oxygen. Yep. Okay. Lots of things. If you're a chemistry person, this makes sense to you. Great. If not, just ignore this for a moment. Photosynthesis is a redox process. Water gets oxidized, carbon dioxide gets reduced. Okay, now everybody else needs to pay attention. Even if you're not a chemistry person, this reaction takes energy, because you start with these little dinky pieces, carbon dioxide mostly, and you build complex molecules, right? It costs energy to do that, right? That energy boost is given by light. Concerns? We're fine? Okay. That's this. Okay. Photosynthesis comes in two parts. It comes in a photo part and a synthesis part, and I'm not being funny, like it really does. Does somebody want to help me out? What does photo mean, typically? Light, right? Something to do with light, whether photography or whatever, right? Photo has to do with light. So the photo part are called the light reactions. You need light to have this happen, okay? So that's the photo part. Does anybody know, and you don't need to, what synthesis means? Like putting things together, right? Like you synthesize ideas, you put ideas together. You synthesize proteins in your body, you put them together, okay? The synthesis part for photosynthesis is putting stuff together. It's going to be making organic molecules. So you're coming in the light part, the light reactions, and the synthesis part. The synthesis part is called the Calvin cycle, after a scientist named Calvin. So those are going to be the two parts, all right? The light reactions are going to happen in the thylakoid. And it does not everything, but it does a lot of stuff. What it's going to do, it's going to split water. This is the part that's releasing oxygen, so that's good. And this is the part where it's actually capturing that energy from light and doing stuff with it. So it's going to split water and pull off low energy electrons, and the light's going to excite them. And so you're going to put these really excited electrons into this electron acceptor and then have it get full, right? So now it's going to be holding excited electrons. You're also going to use the energy that you get from this whole process to put ADP and inorganic phosphate back into ATP. So the light reactions take light, you capture energy from light, and you capture energy in ways you can use. You capture it by having high energy electrons in electron acceptors and by having ATP. We're good with that? The Calvin cycle, okay, sorry, the light reactions go down in the thylakoids. The next part, the Calvin cycle, happens in the stroma. And that's where you're going to use carbon dioxide, and you're going to make sugar, and you're going to use energy that you just barely got. You're going to use APP and NADPH, which you just barely captured that energy. So here's the overall idea. The whole whiteboard is a cell, right? We're now, this line here, that's the chloroplast. Inside that chloroplast, we have that thylakoid. Yeah? Thylakoid here, we have water coming in, we've got light providing that energy boost. We have NADPH, ADP plus inorganic phosphate, right? All those smushed together. And we're going to get oxygen off. We're going to fill up our electron acceptor, right? It's going to carry it. Whew. NADP plus goes to NADPH. ADP inorganic phosphate to ATP. Right? We've now caught some energy. We've caught that energy from light. Then we're going to feed this into the Calvin cycle, this energy. And this energy is going to go where we've got carbon dioxide. It's going to help put that the carbons together. We're going to give off sugar. Right, so sugar comes through because a bunch of carbons here. We're going to use up ATP. So now it's ADP plus inorganic phosphate. It's going to go back. NADPH, we took electrons out. It's going to go back as NADP plus. Right, and this whole thing happens. Cool with this? I'm seeing nods. That's good. I realized about 2 weeks ago, you might have seen this, there were like too many squiggly lines, but because of last week, I bet if you see it now, you're like, I've got squiggly lines down, like I can follow them. So yeah, that's the overall take home. This is what's happening. Okay? Questions? In the last 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes, we're not covering everything, but we are going to talk about how light works briefly. Okay? So, sorry, I shouldn't take deep breaths because that makes people nervous. They're like, oh gosh. Light reactions are going to capture solar energy and change into chemical energy. Sunlight has energy in it. All right? So light, it's something called electromagnetic energy or radiation, right? It's got energy in it. All right? Light's moving in waves, right? And let me pull this up. I've drew it before and it's not great. Wavelengths come in different sizes. So you can have a wave like this, where between each crest of the wave where it gets high and the next one, it's a long ways apart, right? Or you can have waves where there are a lot more bumps in the same time, right? So you can have a wave that's like this. Okay? And that's got a shorter wavelength because between this peak and this peak, it's a lot shorter. So far, so good? Okay, so wavelength is going to, sorry, I should stay by here so people can hear me. Hi, online people, I forget sometimes, sorry. Wavelength is going to determine the type of the electromagnetic energy. So, here we go here. Electromagnetic radiation has a whole range, right? Like from really, really, really long wavelengths, something like radio waves, to really, really short wavelengths, something like gamma rays. All right? But there's this whole spectrum there. There's only part of that spectrum that we can see, right? Called visible light. And light's different colors of light have different wavelengths, and so different energies, right? Now, I know, like, in general, you think of blues as cool colors and reds as, like, hot colors, right? But if you were looking at a flame, right, you're looking at a flame, you see the wick there on the candle. Far away from the wick, it's like orangish reddish, right? And right next to where it's hot, where it's hottest, it's like white blue, right? Blue has more energy. In light, blue has more energy. Okay? So the short wavelengths, the purples and blues, high energy, short wavelength. And then down on the reds, oranges, it's going to be long wavelengths and less energy. Yeah? Where this actually makes a difference is now in how to capture that energy. So this electromagnetic radiation has energy. You want to capture it. What's going to capture it are things called pigments. And like you have pigments in paint, right? They just like capture certain colors. Pigments are things that can absorb visible light. So some things don't absorb light very well at all. Light bounces off of them, right? Some things light bounces off of. Other things light just goes through. Pigments aren't doing either of those. I mean, they're doing some, but pigments are trying to absorb light. So wavelengths of light that don't get absorbed either get passed through, or they get reflected. Yeah? And different pigments absorb different frequencies of light. So like, back when you had desks, right? Like when you weren't in this auditorium, you had desks. You know how, and it might be you know there's one person who like jiggles their legs and get the desks to wiggle, wiggle, wiggle? Yeah. If you're that person, you're like, I have to, my leg just needs it. and everyone else is like, ah, I'm going to throw pen caps at you, right? Okay. There's a frequency at which those desks vibrate. If you go a little bit faster, a little bit slower with jiggling, it doesn't work. But just at a certain frequency, it vibrates, right? Pigments behave kind of similarly. There are certain frequencies that they absorb beautifully, and then higher or low frequencies get reflected or it just goes through, right? With that, we have this picture here. You've played with prisms before, I hope. You've seen a prism before. Light comes in white. What comes out? Rainbows, and they're so pretty, right? You're like, yay, rainbows, right? Okay. So white light has all the colors of light in it, right? And if you pass through a prism or something that breaks it up, you can pull apart light into all its colors, right? Also, anybody who does like lighting, you might know that if you put several different colors of light together, it'll make white light. Yeah. So white light has all the colors. Yeah. What happens with chloroplast, so chlorophyll, the pigment chlorophyll absorbs light, right? Absorbs light, absorbs energy. It can't absorb everything. So interestingly, there are a couple types of chlorophyll, but chlorophyll absorbs blue-purple light really well, and it absorbs red-orange light pretty well, which means you're left with this green stuff. So it absorbs basically all the wavelengths of light except green, which either gets bounced back or transmitted through. So that's why it leaves it green, because it's the wavelength that the plant's like, I just don't see it. Cool thing? That's in general. There are pigments that do slightly different versions of this, right? So you can have pigments that absorb different wavelengths of light. So you'll see some leads that are like practically black, right? You've seen this before maybe. But in general, you've got this kind of thing happening. Questions? You're going to do this in lab. This week in lab, I know you're excited. It's going to be good, right? I can see it on your faces now. You can get spinach, and you're going to suck, well, not like, but you're going to extract, so you can extract chlorophyll from it, and you put chlorophyll in little tubes, and then you're going to zap, you can put in a little machine, you're going to zap light at it, and be like, what absorbs well? It'll be cool. Except if you'll rush for time, and I can't help you with that. I'm sorry. But yeah. So, brief video. I'm torn between like super exciting videos that have like motor proteins with faces on them versus just the like actually informative ones, which are less exciting. The informative ones, I feel like you probably learn more. This is one of these types, the just good for you types.
Membrane in chloroplasts contains light-absorbing molecules called pigments. Different pigments absorb light at different wavelengths. One pigment, chlorophyll A, absorbs mainly blue-violet and red light. This molecule participates directly in the light reactions. Another molecule, chlorophyll B, absorbs mainly blue and orange light. We do not see these absorbed colors when we look at a leaf. Instead, we see the green wavelengths that are reflected back from the leaf or transmitted through.
Exciting, right? Okay, I'm going to briefly kind of walk you through a little bit what's happening in the lab, just so that you don't feel stressed when you see it. But you'll also see it in lab. So, a spectrophotometer, which sounds cool, it just is cool. A spectrophotometer is measuring how good a pigment is at absorbing wavelengths of light. And so the machine's going to send light through something, and it measures how much of that light actually makes it to the other side. So this is what it's going to look like. You're going to have this little machine. You're going to have your tube that has whatever it is. For you guys, it's going to be chlorophyll. You're going to have your tube that has the pigment in it. You're going to shine light through. In the machine, there's a prism. You're going to shine light through. There's basically a camera on the other side that's going to measure what gets absorbed or transmitted. So right now, you're seeing that green light goes through. So when you send this prism, you can send one specific wavelength of light through. So you're sending green wavelength of light through. When you send green light through, most of it goes through. Really high transmittance. High transmittance and low absorption are the same thing. So either transmit a bunch of it, meaning you don't absorb very much, right? So green light transmits beautifully. You shine blue light through it, you don't see very much blue light on the other side because the pigment absorbed it. Questions about that? It's actually kind of fun to do. So you have to be a little bit paranoid about like your grubby fingerprints on your little glass tube because that messes it up. Questions? You all know about tomorrow's Zoom meeting extravaganza? Okay, extravaganza maybe is pitching it a little bit hard. Yeah, I think that's all we have today. I realize there are more on the slides, but we'll get to them on Wednesday. 4 minutes. It's always 4 minutes earlier than the 9 o'clock class, and I don't know why. I really hope I'm not like leaving things out. So I don't think so because